Welcome to another episode of Destination Declassified, the channel that unearths the deepest, darkest conspiracies of our time, as well as dissecting the most fascinating UFO sightings to date. When one thinks of a picturesque landscape and mystical region of the world, Scotland is most likely number one on many people's list. A country stacked with glorious history and filled with national identity is also famous for some of the greatest mysteries and myths ever told. From the infamous search for the Loch Ness Monster, as well as other mythical creatures, such as the Kelpies or Selkies, to the ghost piper of Clanyard Bay and Corryvreckan Whirlpool, Scotland is a nation full of folklore and mysticism. Not only does the country pride itself on inspiring tales of historical heroes and surrounding itself with beautiful scenery, Scotland is also a legendary spot for paranormal activity, especially that of UFO sightings. In this video, we will investigate the most recent discovery that has stunned the UFO community and baffled the world. A photograph that has finally been unveiled after being kept hidden for more than 30 years, now being dubbed the best UFO picture ever taken. So how, after all these years of investigation, grainy footage and skepticism, have 6 photographs generated such hype and hysteria? What was the story and potential cover-up behind it? And what can we learn from such a colossal finding? Let's take a look as we begin this episode of Destination Declassified. Not many people, even those who are born or reside in Scotland, may have heard of the Kelvine. The small region is just off the A9 link road that connects the renowned Highlands to the Central Belt and capital city, and is approximately 35 miles northwest of Perth. However, the story and the photographs that are now associated with the area will surely increase its tourism and affluence in the years to come, considering how vital the following account is to the study of UFOs and extraterrestrial activity worldwide. The uncovered picture itself is remarkable upon first viewing, yet the longer one looks at it, the more confusing and phenomenal it appears. Currently labelled the Kelvine photograph, the image was taken along with 5 other snapshots on August 4th, 1990, and thanks to unrelenting research and investigative endeavours of UFO journalist Dr. David Clarke of Sheffield Hallam University and UAP Media UK, has it now finally seen the light of day. An extremely large vessel is clearly seen in the still picture as it hovers above the ground, diamond-shaped and seemingly metallic in nature. It is said to have been approximately 30 meters in length, and is concurrent with the stereotypical mechanics of the so-called flying saucer phenomenon. In the background of the spectacular image, a fighter plane can be seen as well. As it's in the distance, it is much smaller in size and scale to the mysterious diamond, and was identified by the Joint Air Reconnaissance Intelligence Center, JARIC, who had access to all 6 photographs, as a Royal Air Force Harrier jet fighter. What we don't know, however, was if the aeroplane was following the entity or not, or who the pilot is. Eerily, it has since been revealed that in October 2021, Scottish operations record books have no official listings or accounts of any aircraft which were due to take the skies on the day in question. In the hours and days following the photograph being taken, the original copies were handed over to the well-known popular newspaper, the Daily Record, who in turn provided them to RAF press officer Craig Lindsay, who then passed them to the Ministry of Defence, due to their peculiar nature and aeronautical obscurity. From what we know, all original photographs and accompanying negatives were either stored or possibly destroyed by the MOD or the Daily Record, after their discussions and analysis. Thankfully, Mr. Lindsay had preserved the now released image in his home after providing the authorities with the remaining snapshots of the UFO. Having been the first official correspondent to speak with the men who took the photographs, 2 catering chefs who decided to go for a walk that evening, Lindsay would conduct the interview and obtain the images that would not only stun the UFO community nowadays, but would take its toll on his own well-being for more than 30 years. Despite the initial excitement and mischievousness that engulfed him after he returned home with an incredible piece of evidence that clearly shows an unidentified flying object, Lindsay began to fear for his job and livelihood, as it could be said that he had broken protocol by keeping the photograph. Now in recent months, after Dr. David Clarke managed to track him down to his home and approach him for comment, Mr. Lindsay, now 83, would actually breathe a huge sigh of relief by saying, "I had been waiting for someone to contact me about this for more than 30 years, and the burden had finally been lifted from his shoulders." So to whom do we give thanks with regards to the pursuit and eventual tracking of such an amazing piece of evidence? Dr. David Clarke has worked as a curator at the National Archives in Britain and is an associate professor of media arts and communication at Sheffield Hallam University, teaching media law. He is a member of UAP Media UK, helping to uncover the truth about reports of anomalous craft. His instinctive ability for seeking the truth most likely stems from his previous journalistic work at the Sheffield Star and Yorkshire Post, as well as his position as a press officer in local government, which he worked at for approximately 4 years. More fascinatingly, Dr. Clarke also has a PhD in folklore, which he completed in 1999, and was curator of the Ministry of Defence's UFO Files project with the National Archives from 2008 and 2013. Clarke has also written and published books such as How UFOs Conquered the World, The History of a Modern Myth. Suffice to say, it would certainly appear that Dr. Clarke knows what he is talking about, whose following testimony regarding the events of that evening in 1990 leave little room for dubiety. According to Clarke's report in the Daily Mail on August 12th of 2022, the event occurred as follows. Almost 32 years ago to the day, on August 4th, two men decided to go for a walk in the hills after a long hard day from working at a nearby hotel in the town of Pitlochry, which is situated on the River Tummel, within the distance of Perth and Kinross. Both men had been working as chefs at the lodging and decided, after the kitchen had closed for the evening, that a drive to the Cairngorm National Park was worthwhile, that some fresh air was well deserved. They parked up their vehicle just before 9 PM in the region of Calvine, along the A9, and began their trek across the mountainous terrain. It wasn't long before both men came across the huge spectacle that hovered in the night sky. The massive metallic object was described as being approximately 100 feet or 30 meters in length, and remained silent as both men observed it with terror and awe. After a brief spell of hypnotic gazing, the chefs decided to hide from the intimidating presence above them and scrambled for a nearby wooded area. After reaching safety, they noticed a loud, screeching noise emitting from the sky. In the distance, an RAF jet fighter shot across the distant clouds, not knowing if the plane was aware of the unidentified spectre. It then circumnavigated from its route and headed back to briefly circle around the object before shooting off into the northern skies. It was at this moment that one of the men was able to grab his camera and capture a series of striking photographs of the craft, with the jet fighter in the background. Almost immediately after the picture was taken, as if the UFO had noticed the flash of the camera, it vanished out of sight, ascending into the clouds at a high rate of speed, leaving the men horrified and totally confused. And that wasn't it. As quickly as it was spotted, it disappeared, leaving no trace of itself behind. Only a lifetime of questions, cover-ups, and investigations from the likes of Dr. Clarke. Not only were we now faced with the image of an unidentified flying object, the fact that a militarized jet was circling the area at the time and is seen in the background leads to even more questions. Indeed, during this time, the Cold War was still ongoing and had not come to its final conclusion, so it was customary for aerial reconnaissance to continue in the skies above until the dust settled. Simultaneously to the conflict, conspiracies and gossip began to spread regarding top-secret missions, which were supposedly being conducted by the US government, more specifically, the Aurora concept. In 1990, the same year as the mysterious events that took place in Calvine, the Royal Air Force was consistently on standby to be deployed in the event that Soviet forces attempted a late retaliation strike on UK shores. As previously covered on Destination Declassified, the possibility that Aurora, a reticent covert craft capable of flying at supersonic speeds, and purposefully built to oversee defense programs and spy missions, was part of the discussion in relation to Calvine. Some believe it was spotted in the now former RAF airfield, based in the small village of Machrihanish. However, defense ministers denied, in Parliament, that the US had been given permission to fly or land any mysterious stealth aircraft within UK airspace, spawning yet more conspiracy theories. And yet, the original photographs, which were possibly hidden away by the Ministry of Defense, were scrutinized by intelligence chiefs, and according to David Clarke, sources claim it to be that of a top-secret US aerial project. Eventually, the MOD papers were officially declassified. However, the names of the two men who witnessed it, as well as Craig Lindsay, were removed from that file under data protection laws. The normal process of publicizing previously confidential materials is to do so after a period of 30 years. The photograph should have been released on January 1st, 2020, if this was indeed the case. Eerily, however, the MOD and the National Archives attempted to keep them under wraps until 2076 due to privacy concerns, stating, "There are no photographs contained in the file. The file itself states that the original negatives were returned to the Scottish Daily Record." Back to the here and now, Dr. David Clarke attempted to seriously examine and analyse the picture with both Craig Lindsay and Andrew Robinson, a senior lecturer in photography at Sheffield Hallam University. All three men are in agreement that the image is legitimate. Clarke kicked off the examination discussion by stating, if it is a hoax, then it's a highly elaborate one, involving expensive, sophisticated equipment and flying models, not at the disposal of two jobbing hotel chefs. Robinson supported the judgment by saying, "My conclusion is that the object is definitely in front of the camera. That is, it's not a fake produced in post-production, and its placement within the scene appears to be approximately halfway between the foreground fence and the plane in the background." In October 2020, the Scottish Sun newspaper decided to conduct their own investigation by formally requesting details via the Freedom of Information Act from the National Archives by asking a set of questions. Question 1 was, did the MOD transfer the dossier to the National Archive? According to the response, which is filed under reference DEFE 24/1940, the record was confirmed as being transferred from the Ministry of Defence. All good so far. Question 2 was it just the dossier, or were supplementary materials included, such as photographs? The National Archive contents relating to DEFE 24/1940 at the time of the request were locked until January 1st, 2076, and under specific instructions not to be released or discussed by top officials from the UK government. Question number 3 was, are these files marked as classified or somehow FOIA exempt, and why? The response this time focused on the redactions that were made to the files within the open online version, such as names and addresses of witnesses and/or employees. Question 4 was, is it normal for files to be delayed for 50 plus years? Have you, the person replying to the Scottish Sun's request, ever seen this happen? Interestingly, it is typical for materials, except under section 40/2, to be sealed off for lifetime of such subjects. This is assumed to be 100 years from the subject's date of birth. Question 5 was, is the Scottish Sun's claim that the National Archives are actively withholding these files accurate? If so, who gave you this right? The final response on this was that the only closed information within this specific subject and/or files is personal information and is therefore exempt under S42 of the FOI Act. Rather vague, I'm sure you'll agree. Graham Rendell from UAP Media UK, a group dedicated to serious conversations with the British media and politicians on the discussion of unidentified aerial phenomena, which was formed in late 2020 by Rendell and 3 other UFO enthusiasts, states, "We may not be any closer to knowing exactly what the object seen over Calvine in August 1990 was, or who it belonged to, but an important piece of the puzzle has dropped into place due to diligent research." Dan Zetterstrom, also from the group, added, "The Calvine photograph stands as one of the biggest mysteries in UFO history. As always, the answers found raise even more questions." So what exactly happened that night in the summer of 1990? What did those men see, and what happened to them? Was it a top secret mission that was stumbled upon by two individuals who were in the wrong place at the wrong time? Too many questions, yet so little answers. What we do know is that the image provided by ex-RAF press officer Craig Lindsay, and with steady acknowledgement filtering from governments across the Atlantic, we may in fact be getting closer to the truth regarding the great UFO debate. As we continue to make strides in the development of technology and intelligence gathering, we are able to uncover hidden truths and hold governments to account on matters of great importance. For years, there has been frustration and distraction through the dissection of grainy footage and bogus testimonies. However, there seems to be a change on the horizon. With the recent disclosure from the US government, broadcasting of videos and stories obtained by military officials, and funding for such projects at an all-time high, maybe we can finally answer the question and confirm that we are definitely not alone. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Destination Declassified. If you ever find yourself in the United Kingdom, make sure you take a trip to Boney, Scotland. You never know what you may discover. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.